Welcome everyone to the Green Dreams podcast. Today we have David White talking about his life, his job in real estate and mortgage, professional mortgage
A banker.
licensee, banker, mortgage banker. Let's get it started.
So it's great to have you here, Dave. We've been trying to get you on the podcast for a while now. We definitely have been speaking out of our element for a lot of things in banking for a while now. So we figured having a banker on would be a pretty good educational video for us and the viewers. So if you just want to introduce yourself and, just quick 30 seconds, what do you do?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. You said you've been speaking out of your element for the past few weeks.
Definitely we have.
Yeah,
we act like we've been 30 years in business.
I've been speaking out of my element for decades. So it happens to the best of us. Name's Dave White. I'm a commercial real estate lender. I work for a bank, a local bank, is a big bank in Florida, and frankly, I am coming up on 30 years of commercial banking. Most of it's in real estate. It's in banking. There's really only three things you can do. You can either lend money, underwrite, do all the hard work to write up a package and explain why it's a good deal. And the third thing you do at banking is collect money, because sometimes you make loans and they don't get paid back.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got, that's a whole other kind of banking, is trying to figure out what the internal rate of return is on a $10 million loan at 5%, and they don't give you your 10 million back.
$10 million loans.
Tell me what the return on that is.
That's
So
there's some big loans for what type of real estate does commercial mean?
Commercial, I've got it. I break it up in categories. There's asset types. So the ones I do are apartment complexes, office buildings, retail buildings, hospitality, like hotel assets, and finally industrial warehouse. Warehouses are everything from an Amazon type warehouse to a self-storage asset where someone's built a 1,000-unit self-storage building, those are big time. I mean, they make a lot of money, and they're in the past have been surprisingly cheap to build, because it's almost like building a warehouse. You have concrete and tin.
Yeah, exactly.
Not a whole lot of creature.
You don't have to worry about a tenant, electricity, toilets breaking, right?
Bingo.
I've heard a lot about storage right now. Great investments.
It's shocking. I mean, it is absolutely shocking that when you think the economy slows down, people can have garage sales because they can't afford the storage shed.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, that causes an increase because divorces, people downsize their home, and there's some stuff they paid for they want to keep. I'm shocked in the past 25 years what the changes I've seen in that one piece of my area. Right now, the favorite loans of banks, of commercial real estate banks, are apartments. As you've seen, the apartment prices they're
skyrocketing. Yeah, and me being in real estate, I love to get into apartment complexes and that type of stuff.
That's incredible that you've got your customers, or the customers' apartment complex. They're your competitor are home builders, and we've gotten to a situation now where, the apartment rent is maybe twice what a mortgage payment is.
Yep, exactly.
Which is insane. 100%. Never in my life has that happened. That's just not. People rent because they're too poor to have a mortgage payment or don't have the credit.
No, yeah, it's insane. Like right now, our office listings in my brokerage are 20% of what they usually are. Mm-hmm. Like we have just nothing. And when we pop one up, we'll get 3 calls on that day. Like
it'll come in.
It really is insane. When I see these prices for a 1-1, you're looking at $800, right?
Yeah.
And that's a mortgage for a small house for
this
sure.
Is easily, and that can easily be $100,000 loan, especially the rates now 2.5% or 3% easily. We have a lot of people moving down to Florida from other parts of the country that are coming from much higher cost of living. So they're coming in a house that you thought was worth 100, they look at it and think it's worth 600 because where they're from. So they pay 200, and you're thinking you're credulous. Why would they spend twice for that house? And they're thinking, what a bunch of suckers. I got the house for a third of the price I was used to paying.
Living in California, $1 million house there is
nothing. Yeah, that's like 800 square foot.
Well, now that we do have a looser definition of what commercial real estate lending is and what what area you've been spending the last 30 years of your life in. We definitely want to get into the broad focus areas. So we hope to hit on 4 to 5 topics in this podcast. And Aaron's going to lead us into the first one.
Sure.
Aaron, go ahead.
Yeah. So background, how did you get started in this type of commercial banking? Some of the types of places you've been, and basically just a background of
How did you kind of
Sure.
start? Why did you want to get into lending?
Sure,
banking?
sure.
You can actually, for this one, you can go as far back as high school jobs. And then I understand you were in the military as well.
Yep.
You can go all the way backwards.
I moved to Florida, moved to Jacksonville. I was 3 years old. I was born in Pensacola, Navy family. My first house is about 2 miles from here.
Oh, really? That's so cool.
When I was so
I live on your side of town.
you do. I was raised on the
West
west side. Went to school here in the west side, Ed White High School. Everything. In high school, probably about ninth grade, I found I liked working with numbers.
Okay.
And not algebra and geometry, but I like working with money. We called it consumer math back then. And I was really good at handling money, figuring out interest, understanding investment, understanding, the things you can do with money and why money has to concern itself with time because of inflation, because of recessionary things happen to money over time. And that just clicked. Throughout high school, took regular high school courses. I was in vocational training during high school. So I was in a warehouse management course.
Which high schools today do not do anymore.
No, I don't think we
Which is
have.
crazy.
I don't think we have that. I mean, because I'd get on the bus or we had cars. If we had a car, we'd drive over to this West Side Skills Center. It's called the James Peterson School now or something. There'd be a guy sitting next to you. He's in the welding class in the room next to you. The guy sitting across the bus, he'd be in the bricklaying. We had welders, carpenters, bricklayers. I mean, about half your high school was spent going to those classes, and the other half of your high school was English 101, English 102, and as far as I ever got in high school was geometry, because you didn't need to go beyond that if you're on a vocational track. And then your last year, half my day was spent working in a lumber yard because that was the logistics. I was in warehousing. That was my,
Your intended career path, you were looking
So,
to go to
were you
logistics?
kind of planning on going into a trade?
Yeah.
Like at the first?
Oh yeah, that was, I enjoyed trade. I also enjoyed money. After high school, I went right to college. I mean, I did plan on doing something and I was going to be an accounting major. After about a year and a half, college is a lot harder. I was pretty young and ended up joining the Navy. And it's as simple as that. I mean, I didn't dislike college. It was just a lot of work, as you can imagine.
That's crazy. To say that half the time you said you go into class and half the time you're
working.
doing skills. Like I can't even imagine that now. It's only science, English, and math.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like even like a carpentry class, I think would have been so cool to do in high school.
I
and
mean,
stuff like that.
the stuff, and even it goes back to ninth grade at Lakeshore Junior High. Everybody took metal shop.
Like, that's crazy. Now you're 18. You don't know how to change a tire. You don't know
You
how
can't do
to change basically a light bulb. Like you don't know what's under the plumbing, under your sink.
Oh yeah,
Like,
it's and even the basic things, because you would first half the year you would take the metal shop and you're learning about welding and with a furnace. You have a furnace and you're beating
That's so
metal into
cool.
a chisel just to understand the principle.
that's so cool.
I'll take the other half of the other semester. I guess the other half of the year you'd be in wood shop. And you'd be learning to use a skill saw, a radial arm saw, the band saw, all the stuff that people bubble wrapped from children. I mean,
100%.
children need to learn how to use
100%.
tools. I mean,
Yeah, that's
That's-
so cool. Like now that's like looked down upon, like
Yeah.
being like knowing like trades, right?
oh,
Stuff
you didn't
like
go
that.
to college. You're
Which is insane to me. Like
this.
I mean, home ec now is like the only kind of thing they have there, and basically that's gonna disappear too.
Thankfully, at least we have that. All my kids have had home ec. At least they know how to, not burn something,
Yeah,
burn the kitchen down when they're using it. But that's, this isn't very long ago. This is 30 years ago. This is 3 miles away.
Like it's
I mean,
crazy.
this
Like
is
I
how
had
we
no
live.
idea. Like that.
Went to college for about a year. Wanted to do something else. My dad said, my dad's a retired Navy. He says, I know what you want to do. You want to go see, don't you want to see the world and go out and do something and stop the studying? And I said, Dad, that's what I want. That's what I want. I got a guy I can introduce you to. But within a week, I was in the Navy. But once again, I joined the Navy. They don't have this job anymore, and we'll get into banking and stuff. But the guy that does the financial books for the ship, because you have payroll, you have people that go travel for official purposes and come back, and they need to be reimbursed for their hotels and stuff like that, and the mileage. The ship, when we're overseas, you can stock up. You're on a cruise for 6 months. You can stock up on a lot of things. Lettuce and vegetables are not one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you get near a port, you make arrangements with the local vendors, and you order 16 tons of lettuce and 5,000 tons of carrots and all this, the fresh food, the fresh stuff. We had plenty of freezer goods, and a Navy ship can carry a lot of that. But when you get stuff in from the local economy, they need a check. They need money. In fact, they prefer if you gave them their own currency. So part of my job was also, with a dispersing officer, reaching out to our local embassy, writing a check for a couple $1 million, getting a couple $1 million worth of currency of the time. So in Spain, it'd be the Spanish peseta, or the French for franc, or stuff like that. Get that cash, then pay vendors. And I'd always get a little extra, because when we pull in a port, the sailors would want to go out and buy stuff, go drinking, mostly drinking. I mean, we were all that age. And we would exchange, we'd have enough, I'd buy enough French francs or Israeli, what was there's a currency failed a couple of times. I'll think of it in a minute.
Rubies, jewels?
No, it was shekels. Shekels.
Yeah, shekels.
Yeah, you've heard that term before, but it's failed like 30 times. But it's a word. I'd go get extra shekels or francs, sell them to the ship, our crew members. So at least when they went drinking, they knew what they were getting. They didn't. Someone wasn't on the pier ripping them off with a bad exchange rate.
Think about that side of it.
So when you kind of got started in the Navy, did they tell you to do this job, or were you like, so I like numbers, I like accounting, let me do something in the Navy that kind of at least fits in that?
The first thing, a recruiter wants to be successful. They want you to be successful, and he doesn't get credit for you going in the Navy unless you're in the Navy for like 3-6 months or something after boot camp. So number one, there's a battery test you take to see what you're kind of good at. Number two, you say, well, hey, it says here there's 50 jobs in the Navy. It says you're going to be really good at these 10. Which one would you be most interested in? And the recruiter is interested in you getting lined up.
That's great that they help you out.
Mine were a lot of supply side logistics things. Logistics came back and everything. But my favorite was dispersing clerk. It was right there on the top. I had, as I expected, I had the attitude, or the knowledge for it.
That's great. Yeah, like you might have left college, but you were still learning about accounting, right?
It was.
Like, that's awesome.
In the government, it's called there's many types of accounting. It's called appropriation accounting in the government. So it doesn't really apply as much to the real world, but there are debits and credits. And with that, you start having a mindset of doing things, putting together reports, and getting a feeling something's wrong here. Something's not balancing. And as long as you can put the numbers together and keep track of them, and on occasion get that gut feeling that something's wrong, well, that's good. That's what you need to be a good dispersing clerk or a good banker. Just get that feeling that something's wrong. You walk in here, all this expensive computer equipment, it looks like crazy stuff with buttons on it to me. But to you, you would see the layout and say, something's wrong here. This light shouldn't be on or something.
Yeah.
But because you have that type of brain.
What age was this when you were a dispersing clerk?
19.
How long were you in the Navy for?
4 years active duty. But about my last year, they transferred me from an amphibious warfare ship, which is a big carrier for helicopters, because we were going into areas like Nicaragua and Honduras at the time. It's when you bring the Army and the Marines, beach them. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of ships we were on. They're called amphibious. The last year, I got promoted. We were over allotted for second class petty officers. So they sent me the John F. Kennedy, which is an aircraft carrier. Day one, I got on there. I saw this huge carrier, these planes everywhere. Talking with the pilots, talking with the Airedales, the guys from the squadrons. I'd pay people to wear their shirts, so I can be on the flight deck, watch the planes go by. And as long as nothing went bad, I mean, it was all cool. But you give some guy $20 and I give you, like my favorite guy was a medical guy. So he says, if anything ever happened, get off the flight deck because you're not a doctor. But $20 is a lot of money to him. I fell in love with that. And I said, okay, I'm going to get out of the Navy. 4 years is up. I'm going right to college, finish college in 2.5 years because I had a little bit of college to get back into flight school because I was going to age out. After 26, 27, you're too old to start flight school. That was the very most motivating thing. The best time I had in the Navy. Did that for 4 years. Flight school didn't work out for a lot of reasons, but I stayed in the reserves. And about 20 years in the reserves, they called me up and sent me overseas.
Really?
Now,
And this was when you were pretty knee deep in banking at this point.
yeah,
Oh,
this
wow.
is
So
I'm
that's crazy.
44 years old, and they sent me to the
I
desert.
don't want to skip too far ahead into the banking
Yeah,
side,
that's
but you're
That's crazy.
But it even though I left, I finished Navy, finished college, tried to get back in the Navy, didn't work out. I still wanted to go to logistics. That was still my number one thing to do after I graduated UNF, and stayed in for MBA because back in 1989, 1990, we were having a recession. It was hard to get a job, so I just stayed in for graduate school. Still wanting to be, logistics guy, but second choice was anything to do with money, banking. And it was just happened to be, because this is a big logistics city.
Yeah.
I just happened to get a better offer from a bank before I got a decent offer from a logistics company. So banking was probably always there. Logistics has always been my interest. But at the end of the day, I've made all my money banking,
and that's why we've got you here tonight. Not for logistics, but for
That's really cool. I remember John telling me, I asked him one time, why did you pick logistics at UNF? And he told me you said that was a great path.
Yeah.
And he's
Look at
doing
this.
awesome on that.
now you see the
And,
background work, what that goes into.
now
Look-
I realize that you were so interested in logistics. And
Look
he-
at this. Look at our city. I-95 meeting I-10. You can go anywhere, Canada or California. 295. You got 3 major rail spurs going through here, and a big old river.
Oh yeah, it's insane.
This Jacksonville Port Authority.
This is what logistics is.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing, you have all that stuff. Plus, Jacksonville's got the biggest jewel of them all. It's called cheap land. Cheap land you can do anything with big. You look at New York City, everybody builds 100-story buildings. Land's too expensive. But in Jacksonville, you can have a 1 million square foot warehouse with Amazon on the side of it, 1 story. Take up all the room you want. Because comparatively, the land is so inexpensive. Now, it's $1 million an acre, but that's very inexpensive compared to other cities.
Before we get to the next broad focus to shift gears, when you said you joined the Navy at 19 and you were in there for 4 years, so
Active duty.
4 years, reserves for 20 plus years after that, you were handling and you were working with the officer on ship to handle millions of dollars
Yeah,
at 19.
at 19.
That's crazy.
We would, whenever most of our money was handled at 2 occasions as far as cash, one on payday. 'Cause back in the day, we had a computer that would actually print out everybody's checks.
Oh really?
And because people had allotments, and they had money sent home, and then they had money sent to their mortgage company, and then what was left, they got a check. And then we'd all get ready to the check, and then we go down to the mess decks where we eat, lay out the tables and everything, and I just bring a suitcases of cash. We just
Wow.
sack it up,
That's crazy.
and guy want to cash his check, maybe a $50 check and maybe a $500 check. We're counting the money out. We were really fast counters. If the ship was about to go out to sea, if for 6 months, that's 12 paydays. There's a huge amount of leakage of cash on a ship if you hit a lot of ports.
I wonder why.
And that happens if it, depending on the combat situation. In some ports, sometimes we went out to sea and never saw shore because we were handling the Soviets, and there's a lot of stuff going on that we knew we're not going to see land. We're going to be gone. We're going to be out there in the ocean for 2 months, really harassing other countries,
Right.
that's the best part. That was the best part. So you didn't have much leakage, so I didn't have to bring much cash. But the most we ever had to bring was it was going to be for 12 paydays. We had additional staff on the ship, about 6,000 people, and we went to the local bank on base. There was a sovereign bank back then. It's a personal road check for $11 million. Walked down there. He had arranged this before, and we're carrying the bricks of money out. Now,
Oh my god.
brand new money is simply a brick, but of 4,000 notes. So you carried it like firewood. It was all shrink wrapped and
Oh
everything
my
hard. And,
gosh.
and you would just stack up you carry 5 or 6 of them. Each brick that was $100 bills, that was $400,000. So you got a 19-year-old carrying a couple $1 million.
19 years old.
And they would,
That's insane.
by the time you're carrying that, and they know you have the mentality, and you're more worried about what if the numbers don't match? What if the serial numbers aren't right? You're not even thinking about stealing anything. You want to how to make sure the paperwork stays straight. And they, disbursement officer and your chief, know that you've got that mindset. That's everything had to be right. Or if it's not right and didn't balance, you don't sleep. You couldn't sleep.
Oh yeah, your
Oh my
ass is
gosh.
your ass is grilled.
It's like, and it's not. You don't want to be there. You don't want to sleep. What happened? What did I do wrong? Because it involves money. Money's not sacred, but it's almost sacred to people that do this for a living. So that's probably learned early on that I probably belong in banking, just because I've got that that mindset. It's probably not healthy at all, because I can't find a penny and you spend 2 days obsessing over
Oh
it.
my God.
But you can't not balance. It'll drive you crazy.
Last thing before we shift away from Navy, how many countries did you see in those 4 years?
I think total count 20 countries.
20 countries in
20
4 years,
countries.
handling millions of dollars along the way. At 19 years old, well, 19 to 23 was the
Yeah,
age range.
1923.
Wow.
4 years was up. Went to FSCJ. First day of school, met mom.
Oh, that's crazy.
Me
That's
and
so
me
cool.
and Jenny sat next to each other in English 101.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Rest of it. That was 35 years ago.
Well, we want to get into the actual day in your life before we start getting into the whole career broad, where you've been, what mergers you've been through. So it's in our understanding, we're looking at your LinkedIn profile. You're referred to as a commercial real estate relationship manager.
That's right.
And
That's right.
we'll keep the details confidential, but what does that mean? And I've heard you before refer to yourself as a loan officer.
Mhm.
What does that mean? And even today, like, what did you do today as a loan officer?
The simple fact is a loan officer. Whether you loan money on cars, or you loan money on houses, or you loan money on apartments, my job is to maintain relationships with certain families that have been doing this for decades, and I lend them money whenever they need it. Sometimes they find an asset they want to buy, and they'll talk to me about it, and we'll compare notes. And sometimes if my loan is competitive, they'll borrow the money from me. Sometimes not. They have lots of bankers out there. There's lots of loan officers. So that's probably the most profitable thing I do for the banks when I make a loan. A day in the life today, I drove to Orlando, looked at three hotels, because we have to inspect our properties so many times a year.
You
And
inspect them?
Some of the ones that I can get to, I prefer to be the inspector,
Okay.
because, like in this case, I met 2 of the hotel managers. And I've met the owners, and I know the owners, and there's usually multiple generations, because most families, real estate families, are not some guy that has all this money. It's usually 3rd or 4th generation, and the family's been building this, But it's good for me to walk through the hotel, take a look around, see how much activity there is, and to talk to the manager, he's not a signer on my loan. He doesn't know me from anybody. He just knows that the boss said I'm coming, and get a feel, does that person seem happy about their job? Because if they are, their customers are probably happy, So not very exciting, but really important. Today I spent 4 hours on the road, there and back, saw a few hotels, had a few conference calls in the car while I was driving and everything. But that's the key part. I don't just make a loan and then forget about it. I mean, if I made car loans, I'd probably do that. But this particular customer, we have over $100 million out to. The bank expects me to always have my finger on everything,
for
to know
100
what's
million,
going on.
Yeah, you better
I mean,
know. You gotta be
it's-
checking all the time.
it's a lot of money, and it is a hotel loan, which they're really watching closely, especially in the Orlando area, which thankfully I can report that things are getting better very rapidly.
That's
good.
good. That's really
It
good.
is.
Yeah, I bet that last year for Orlando, I've heard, was just terrible. Obviously, because they're just all about
They,
tourism, right?
That's a huge amount of tourism. That was it. And when people around the world stopped getting on airplanes, because remember, a lot of tourism in Orlando is not from America.
Mhm.
These are
Mhm.
people with a lot of money that live somewhere else, and they come in here, spend lots of money, pay lots of taxes, don't use our schools or the highways, leave a boatload of money in the city, and leave.
That's all. Yeah.
That's who you like to
the
visit.
customer right
That's who
there.
you like to visit your city. Yeah. But my favorite days are obviously days that I close a loan, which is not, that's a multi-month process, a lot of attorneys, a lot of crying and screaming, and a lot of anger.
A lot of underwriting.
It's, and I mean, I underwrite part of it and give it to the rural underwriter, and they check my math because I need to look at a building and know that, well, the borrower wants to borrow $10 million. Okay, but why? Well, because this, and this. I got to prove that that asset can support the payments to make a loan against it. And then the underwriter checks my work and then does 10 times more than I would do. I mean, they go back and look at every hotel that was owned on that property in the last 20 years and the sales within the 3-mile radius and see what are they overpaying? Are they underpaying? Why? Underwriting, of the 3 things you can do at a bank, lend, collect, or underwrite, to me, that is by far the hardest job. I mean, and it's almost like the job is kind of thankless because you got a loan officer saying, I want to close the loan, I want to close the loan.
Yeah.
And the credit officer saying, well, wait a minute, did you check this? Did you think about that? What about this? Did you check their bankruptcy?
In the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Underwriter's the guy in the middle that's bark. He's being yapped at by everybody. And
so it's kind of funny because like I'm dealing with single family homes and the underwriting for that and the title companies for that. And it's just crazy, right? I can't imagine like a hotel's underwriting. Oh my gosh, 20 times harder, like
the biggest,
20 times more detailed.
And this is, different banks do different loans. The biggest loan I ever did with my current bank is $30 million, and it was 6 apartment complexes.
So how long would you say that one took? I bet
that was
like
probably
from the start. Hey, I want the loan till
closing.
Till underwriting says, yeah, you're good. And
2 to 3 months.
2 to 3 months.
Now, a big month of that is eaten up just by the appraiser, the environmental study, what they call the third-party reports. I have to pay somebody a third party with uninterested party to do environmental study, to do the appraisal, to do the survey. Someone who will simply tell the truth. Yeah, that building is on the street. That building is not inside the property line. Where the seller or the buyer might say that's close enough. You got to have someone to tell you the truth. That who doesn't care if the loan closes or not. Here's what I found. So that takes a month to do that sort of work.
So Stephen, how long in a residential real estate? How many pages is a survey usually? It's like
I can't tell you.
It's like 2 to 3 pages
like,
at most.
So like right now, it's like with the market being so crazy. I remember when we went to the real estate meeting. The girl that's an underwriter that works at the title company. She said it could take almost a month just for like a single family house.
But like the actual survey.
For a survey, just
how
for
detailed is it? It's like a couple pages, right?
For a survey.
Dave, how long is a survey for a big hotel?
Yeah, for a single family.
And how much would it? Like it's $500 for a survey, or less than $1,000 for a residential. But for a hotel, how long would that be?
So I have not held a full survey in 20 years, ever since they've been able to put them on computer files. But imagine a survey page, 3 feet by 3 feet, probably 10 to 20 pages, but it's such detail that I can't even look at the sheet. I have to increase it on the page. You're doing a survey of the property, and then a survey of each building, and then a survey of each floor of each building, and then a survey of the infrastructure. Where's the electricity coming in? Where's the plumbing coming in? Where's the sewer going out? There's a lot of stuff that has to be detailed because a title company won't issue title until they think everything is included. So it's easily 10 times of, you can imagine how easy it is to do a survey of this house.
Yeah.
Public records, plotted out 75 years ago, it'd be pretty easy. That first survey they do, the perimeter survey, that's easy too. The rest of it's not. Surveyors are $5 to 10 grand.
Wow.
Yeah, depending on the sophistication. And like the big loan I did, it was six properties, 6 separate properties. Now they're all within a few blocks of each other.
That's 6 surveys?
6 surveys.
Wow.
It's there's, of course, we have a customer paying, if we do some underwriting and we think we like the work and nothing else really goes wrong, we'll do a term sheet to the customer. And if he wants us to start, the deposit's usually $25,000 deposit, because I need that money in hand to order the surveys and stuff like that, and the appraisers. So if something goes wrong, that came into the customer's pocket. I'm not taking the risk for that.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of size load. You need $25,000 just to give to third parties to see if you got a problem.